All right. So today in the Rose Garden, President Trump was asked about the possibility of more stimulus checks. And he was asked directly that question. A journalist asked him, Mr. President, what are your thoughts on another round of direct payments to Americans that is included in the House Democratic bill? But before I tell you what he said, let me just talk about kind of what he was talking about today in the Rose Garden in general. So he started off talking a lot about testing, right? That was really the focus of this. And the question about more stimulus checks was really just a journalist's question in the Q&A. But at first, Trump was talking a lot about testing. He's talking about how 300,000 tests per day. They're going to send out $1 billion to states and territories and tribes to help with their testing capacities. And, that's what Pelosi has been talking about as well. If you watch her interviews in the past few days, the past week, Pelosi's been talking a lot about testing, tracing. That is generally the first thing that Nancy Pelosi brings up when she's asked about this. So he's talking a lot about testing. And he talks about the transition to greatness and all that. But first, let me just tell you the answer to what Trump said. So a member of the press asked Trump in the Q&A, Mr. President, what are your thoughts on another round of direct payments to Americans that is included in the House Democratic bill? First thing Trump says is, well, we're talking about that with a lot of different people. Okay, so stop right there. He says we're talking about that with a lot of different people. So he does not dismiss the possibility of another stimulus check. Okay. Now, let's go back to the question that the reporter asked. The reporter said, what are your thoughts on another round of direct payment? Okay. He didn't ask about the monthly payments, right? He's just asking about another round of direct payments to Americans. And to that Trump said, well, we're talking about that with a lot of different people. So this tells me that Trump is not opposed to it. Okay, but he doesn't exactly want to dwell on it, because right after he says that, what's the next thing he says? He says, I want to see a payroll tax cut. So, my kind of reading on this is, okay, if he was really gung-ho about a lot more direct payments, right, I have to think that he would want to capitalize on the opportunity and really just preach it, right, if that was the direction he wanted to go to get voters' attention. But all he says is we're talking about that with a lot of different people. And then he goes to payroll tax cuts, right? And then he goes to, I want to see various things that we want. I want the workers to be taken care of, but we are talking about that. Okay, so he goes from, we're talking about more stimulus checks to payroll tax cut, right, to the workers being taken care of. Then he says we're negotiating with the Democrats. We'll see what happens. But as I said, it's a transition. This is really going to be, in my opinion, we'll see, but I think it's going to be something that's going to be very special. It's a transition to greatness, and greatness is next year right from the beginning. I think we're going to do fantastically well. I view the third quarter as a transition quarter. Could be pretty good, but it's a transition quarter. Toward the end of the fourth quarter, you're going to see some numbers that are going to be tremendous. And next year, you could potentially have the kind of numbers you saw before and maybe even better, because there is that pent-up demand. So this is interesting, right? The reporter asked about stimulus checks. And Trump says, yeah, we're talking about that. But then he immediately goes into that transition to greatness thing that I told you about a couple days ago. He says, a lot of people wanted to do things, but they were ready to do things, and they've had a holdback because of the virus. So I think you're going to have that pent-up demand, a phenomenal year next year. And then listen to this. Unless somebody messes it up by coming along and raising taxes, doubling, tripling, quadrupling your taxes, like a certain party, namely the Democrats, want to do, you'll mess it all up. Okay? So this one is, that line there is a bit telling. Right? Because the reporter's asking about direct payments, okay? And Trump is saying, well, we're going to accomplish these great things if we don't raise taxes. Okay, so I think the implication there is, okay, if we're doing a lot more direct payments, right, like on a monthly basis, well, obviously taxes will have to go up to support that. But Trump seems to be saying, right, we got to let the economy do its thing, reopen the economy. And the only way it'll be messed up is if someone comes along and raises taxes. Okay, so let me go to the comments real quick and just let's see what people are saying about this. Perna, are we getting another stimulus check? Do you see the possibility of that? Yeah, I see a possibility of that for sure. I mean, the president just said it. He didn't flat out say no more checks. He said, we're talking about that with a lot of different people. We're negotiating with the Democrats. DLP 2600 says, yeah, payroll tax cut doesn't help if you're not working. That's very true. And like I've said, Trump wants people to get back to work, right? And there's less incentive to go back to work if you're getting a $4,000, $6,000, $8,000 check from the government every month. But who's left out of the equation, right? Let's say in this miraculous world happens where everybody's back to work, right? Okay, what about the people who don't work, right? What happens to them? And I think that those people should get some more direct cash payments. We'll see what Trump says about that. It seems like he's gung-ho about testing and vaccine too. Yeah, so Trump, I mean, he was, in my notes, he's talking about a lot of testing. He's saying that, this week we'll pass 10 million tests because, and here's the thing, I think where he's going with that is I think he knows that people will be more willing to go back to work if they know that, okay, yeah, my boss was tested and they were tested and they were tested and they were tested. So I think that's the whole testing thing is now kind of part of his plan to get America back to work, because I think he knows that people will be more open to going back to work if there is that testing in place. Okay, James Rizzo, he's definitely going to give us another check. It's just got to be the right deal. The Democrats are jerk. Okay, well, yeah, I mean, he could give another check, right? But I don't see that UBI concept being accepted in there. Liz Open, looks like it's no on stimulus again. No, that's not what he said, right? I mean, like I've been telling you, I think the Republicans would be open to maybe another round or two, but that's what Trump said. We're talking about that with a lot of different people. But the whole essentially UBI concept, I don't think the Republicans are going to go for that. What about everybody still dying for corona? Let's see. Okay, so there's a few questions here. I'll address some of these questions. My son filed his taxes 4 months ago with H&R Block and still hasn't gotten them back. Yeah, I mean, I know there's a lot of folks. So 4 months ago, wow, though that was in January. I would be curious if he used the Where's My Refund tool, where what it tells him. DLP 2600. I want to go back to work, but reality that companies are not turning on the light switch in one day and everyone will be back. It could be weeks or months before millions are back making money. Yeah, I mean, that's exactly true. And here's what Trump was saying about that. Now, it's kind of interesting. And I think Trump's timeline is maybe a little too fast, because we're going to, it's almost, we're going to be in Q3 here in a couple months. And that's the quarter that Trump is calling the transition quarter, right? So here's what he said. He said, with the devotion of our manufacturing workers, food suppliers, and lab technicians, and with the profound patriotism of the American people, we will defeat this horrible enemy. We will revive our economy, and we will transition into greatness. That's a phrase you're going to hear a lot because that's going to happen. We're going into the third quarter, and we're going to do well. In the fourth quarter, we're going to do very good. And next year, I think we're going to have one of the best years we've ever had because there's a tremendous pent-up demand. We're transitioning to greatness. The greatness is going to be in the fourth quarter, but it's really going to be next year. So, yeah, I mean, I think Trump's timeline, it's a little bit accelerated, okay? Obviously, I think he's talking about his ideal scenario, right? The election's in November. Of course, he wants, quote, the greatness to be in the fourth quarter, right? So Trump is saying Americans got to get back to work, right? Q2, we know it sucks, right? Unemployment's crazy. Q3, it's going to suck too, but he's calling it the transition quarter. But then he's saying the greatness is going to come in Q4. And what's in Q4? Well, November, right? The elections. John Henderson, it would be a lot easier since they have the direct deposit information now. Yes, I mean, that is true, right? We've kind of got all the kinks out with this first one. And so hopefully the next one, if there is one, will go a lot better. Okay, Light Skin Television. How soon will they vote on another stimulus proposal? Okay, so the House could possibly vote as early as this Friday. Okay, so we were hoping that we might see the CARES 2 package that the Democrats drafted today, right? I haven't seen it yet. Maybe we'll see it tomorrow. But we know that it would be Friday at the earliest if the House would take a vote on it, but it could be next week as well. Ba, 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 ba. Now, Phil asks, if we do get a second check, when do you think that would be distributed by summer? Well, I think so. This is just in the theoretical, right? If there is another check, when would it be distributed? To another person's point, I think it will go a lot faster than this round because they're getting all the kinks. They were getting all the kinks out now, right? Think of when the CARES Act was passed, late March. When did those first round of payments go out? Mid-April, right? To the very first people. So, but here's the thing that's going to keep that from happening too quickly is the Republicans are in no rush right now. Trump has said it. He said it with his meeting with Republican lawmakers last week. He said, we're in no rush. We're in no rush, right? So there's not saying they're opposed to stimulus. He's just saying we're in no rush. And that's what he said to the journalists today about stimulus payments. We're talking about that with a lot of different people. So this could be something that goes back and forth, ping pong for a while. The Republicans want to take a more wait and see approach, right? Let's see how this goes, right? States are reopening. Trump in the Rose Garden press briefing today says he's leaving a lot of that up to the governors, right? And that's what he said before. He thinks some governors are doing a great job. He thinks some governors are too slow. He thinks some governors are maybe being a bit too aggressive. And he said, look, if we at the White House, at the Feds think something's going wrong at the state level, we will intervene. But the Republicans, they want to see what's going on right now with the reopening and then play it by ear, essentially. Okay. Trump is upset. Wire report, okay, since the Irish are dragging their feet on paying the first check. Mitchell, I mean, it's true. It is very frustrating. There are still at least 20 million Americans who have not received their stimulus payment, right? We should see SSI, direct deposit, and Direct Express this Wednesday. Paper checks going out the 15th. I expect many other people who aren't SSI will probably get their payments this week as well because the IRS is doing a big batch. But the reality is the majority of stimulus payments from the first round have gone out. Now, I know many people here have not gotten theirs yet, and I try to answer those questions as best I can. But so that's why they're talking through CARES 2 right now, because from the Democrats' perspective, they believe that more money needs to be pumped out into the system right now. Okay. All right. Hope there's more stimulus checks. Phil D, I watched the whole thing. It was exhausting. I assume you're referring to the Rose Garden press briefing today. Yeah, I mean, these things are long. Obviously, I'm just distilling down the pieces that would probably be interested to you. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of people saying that what did Trump say when they asked him about stimulus checks? Okay, so I know I got right into it when there are only maybe like 100 people on the live, but I'll just reiterate what he said briefly. So a journalist asked, Mr. President, what are your thoughts on another round of direct payments to Americans that is included in the House Democratic bill? Trump said, well, we're talking about that with a lot of different people. I want to see a payroll tax cut. I want to see various things that we want. I want the workers to be taken care of. And then he starts this kind of long monologue about the transition to greatness, right? So what my take from that is Trump did not say no, okay? And if you're hoping for another check, that's about the best thing you could probably ask for right now from the president, right? But he did not dwell on that point. He obviously wanted to change the subject very, very quickly, right? Because he said 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. He said 11 words. We're talking about that with a lot of different people, and then immediately says, I want to see a payroll tax cut. So you can kind of see where his mind is at, right? So he's not saying it's not going to happen. He's saying they're negotiating with the Democrats. But he also said that the thing that could mess up America coming back in this transition to greatness is someone coming along and raising taxes, right? So he kind of turned this question about stimulus payments into kind of a campaign pitch, right? He said, we have a lot of pent-up demand. We're going to have a phenomenal year next year unless somebody messes it up by coming along and raising taxes, doubling, tripling, quadrupling your taxes like a certain party, namely the Democrats, want to do. You'll mess it all up. Okay, you know what? I'm not going to make this video too long because I think people are seeing the headline and they're just jumping in, and I don't want to repeat everything. So I'm going to cut it off here so that it can publish to YouTube so that people can just see the answer to the question, what did Trump say? All right. All right. So I'll cut it off now and take it easy, y'all. Bye.